stop presenting.
I think this will actually let me keep on going. So what I was thinking about for job advice was more along the lines of something with career advice, as pertaining to where the field of web development is going. Why do I want to present this as career advice? It's good to pay attention to where web development is going so that we don't get lost behind, stuck in PHP or any other COBOL language. So in the year, well, at the end of the year 2022, a survey was given out on the lines of surveys. It's called the State of JS Survey, and like thousands and thousands of developers were, they submitted their responses of what they saw in the web development world and what they thought that they were doing at the time. And what these guys do, they collect it year by year so you could see the upward trends and differences as the industry is going. There's many different things to this, so I might be zooming through a lot of these. I highly recommend to take this link and study it individually, so that you could be more aware of where the industry is going. So for features overview, there's a lot of graphics. And so, and may actually have to like stop a moment and realize what these things are talking about. So there's nullish coalescing. People were surveyed, have you used it? Do you know about it? There's actually better graphics later to show that. Yeah, I'll zoom to the next one. So language features in JavaScript proxies. So like I know of JavaScript proxies. Have I used them? No. Do I think I could use them sometime? Yeah. So I would be in this group. It looks like more people kind of know about them and are starting to use them, but like not big change. There's another one called All Settled. So these are, so more specifically, these are new JavaScript features. Give a moment for the graph to be seen. Dynamic import. That's a really great thing to use. Private fields in classes. So I mean, I wish I could talk more about this, but I'm zooming through so it gives Kyle the time for his presentation. Nullish coalescing. So I will stop about this one. This one I have found to be extremely useful because types are kind of a problem in JavaScript. And so I've learned time over time that when things are more type aware, it definitely helps to not come across bugs in the code base. Nullish coalescing helps with that, so you could avoid undefined or null variables. Numeric separators, just a logical way to separate into the millions or billions or whatever. Replace all, match all, logical assignment. So those are, there's still some more. Promise.any, array.at, top level wait. So this one, lots, like I remember listening or looking into newsletters. That I also recommend is being subscribed to newsletters. And when this finally came out, so many people were like, oh, finally, we could use this. If you don't know what it is, I recommend look it up later. Zoom through these a bit more. Browser APIs. I'm going to zoom into libraries. So once more, it's a very complex graph. This one just shows popularity over time, essentially. And so, or popularity with like opinions and if it's used or not. It's interesting to study later. So this is a library tier list. This one was interesting to see which ones have the most support. So near the top we see VTest, ESBuild, Playwright, Testing Library, PNP, TypeScript, Next.js, and Svelte are some of the best software to be using because of all the support they have. And from my experience, the best support, when there's a lot of support into JavaScript software, like you'll get answers to your questions super quick and solutions super quick. Zoom through that. Another complex graph to not really explain right now. Front-end frameworks. So this shows retention, interest, usage, and awareness over time. Poor Ember is dying. All the way up near the top, we have Solid. So this is another way to become more aware of where the JavaScript world is going. Is like, oh, Solid. I haven't heard of Solid before. I'll go look it up, and why are people paying attention to it? And then below that would be Svelte, Quick, React. Yeah, so these top three are definitely shaking the industry right now. So will they be able to dethrone React completely in the professional world? That is yet to be seen. Maybe be great if it does sometime, but React has been up there for a long time. And my personal opinion, I feel like there's been I feel like there's overblown amount of frameworks where people are like, another JavaScript framework, let's just stick with React. Like maybe 5 years ago, that would be the thing, like, oh, React, that's so cool. But now it's like, oh, there's another one. So that's from my own perception. You could disagree with me if you want. Experience over time. So these show which ones would be used again, would not use, or interested. Positive and negative split. React has a very positive experience, whereas poor Ember, a very negative experience. So other tools. So there we have, again, Astro. What is Astro? Remix. What is Remix? So then that's where one would be like, oh, okay, why are people paying attention to these? I'll go check these out. How happy are you with the state of front-end frameworks? And it seems mostly developers are fine with how the front-end frameworks are going. I'll be a little bit more. I'll give you the time. Rendering frameworks. So we've got Next, Nux, VeltKit, Gatsby. Let's see what the lowest Gatsby. Sorry, Gatsby. Up near the top, we've got Astro in Next. So and like for me, when I'm looking at this chart, I would think to spend less amount of time with Gatsby. It did have a great start, but it died off. Experience over time, negative positive split. Next.js has a high positive. Other tools, once again, oh, what are these tools? Go check them out. How happy are you with the state of rendering? Mostly positive. Let's see, resources, opinions. I'll go with opinions next. JavaScript is moving in the right direction. From what we could see here, so the darker the color means disagree, but the lighter the color is agree. Seems like most developers are okay with the direction of JavaScript. Building JavaScript apps is overly complex right now. So seems like there's a bit of increase over time. I think I would, for myself, I would put myself as neutral. But once again, things are getting pretty complex. I would agree with that. Depends on the approach that one decides to take. The ecosystem is changing too fast. Another one that's interesting to kind of gauge oneself. I think for myself, I would be on the neutral to the agree side. Not too fast, but it is fairly fast, I would say. Pain points, code architecture, managing dependencies, state management, date management. I'd agree with all those. What do you feel is currently missing from JavaScript? Static typing is number one. So, granted, I already know TypeScript, but if I see static typing as number one, that's where I'm like, okay, I should probably start looking into static typing. A standard library, yeah, better date management, yeah, immutable data structure. There are JavaScript solutions for all of these too, so that's where I want to be like, oh, I'm going to look up how to solve these things, or if there's been solutions for these things. Then this would be kind of fun to review really quick, and then I'll pass it off to Kyle. Most adopted feature, top level await. Most adopted technology, beat. That is French for quick. Highest retention, also beat. Oh, that actually kind of surprised me. Highest interest, beat. Most write-ins, Astro. Most commented feature, private fields. Most commented library, React. Yeah, so that is from the state of JS, their recommendations, or from what they see through the developers, the thousands of developers they've seen. And I encourage this to be reviewed individually. And that'll be all. I'll pass it off to Kyle.
So I'm going to talk about Netlify Forms. It's a tool built into the web hosting tool Netlify. Basically, the kind of advertisement of it is developing forms without a backend to collect the data, but there technically is a backend, you just don't manage it. So like I said, it's built in. They do have API calls allowing you to actually access the data. There is also an admin tool built into Netlify, so you could view the data. I'll show you that a little later. But the basic idea is you put in keywords, and when Netlify builds your website, it parses through and creates a database and creates a form section in the site itself. And then by default, that input string is added by Netlify, so it knows to pick up your form. When you get into JavaScript rendered forms, you have to put that in so it knows what it is. It can't add the form stuff in JavaScript. That's one problem it has. There are workarounds. So some cool features Netlify Forms have is spam filter. You could put in bot detection flags inside the HTML of the form. And then when a bot triggers it, it will flag it and send it to Netlify for them to deal with. The other cool thing with forms is you could have it email you a response, Slack it, or you could create a custom webhook. So, like I said, there are workarounds for working with JavaScript rendered forms. The first one is you could go out and find some NPM package, or you could add a hidden form into the HTML itself, allowing Netlify to pick up your form. And then in your JavaScript, you render the same form tag, and Netlify then renders that form tag, and it overrides how the HTML entities get set. There is also a limitation with a free plan of Netlify of submissions, 100 submissions per pay cycle, which is about a month. And the cool thing with forms is you can have files that could be submitted through this. But with the free one, it's 10 kilobytes. So this is obviously a basic form. So if I enter in information, it'll show up in Netlify's form, and it's pretty fast on how it triggers the event to get to Netlify. One thing to note is it renders this page when you submit the form. By default, this is Netlify submission page. There are ways to go into the form element and override it to be your own successful submission page. It's just, I didn't see the need to show you how to do that in this presentation, but there is documentation out there for, it would just be like a success and then a route to it. So if we go to the admin tool, I could walk through how that works. So I guess I mean that. So I entered in the information, and now it says that there's a contact or content connect form that is built into the HTML. And if we look at the information, it renders this view for you. If we want to look at a specific submission, there's a drop down. And you could see that if you want to get rid of it, you just check the box, click delete, or mark as spam if you believe it's spam. The other cool thing is up there, there's the download as CSV option. So if you want to actually have this downloaded to your computer, like if you want to collect contact info of family to send them emails, you don't want to have to look at this every time you want to send them an email, you could just download the CSV, and now you have all their emails, and you could just read from there. So to the JavaScript side, not that one. This is the same form, but built with rendering the form in React. If we inspect the form, you see that I have a hidden form in there. That's for the bots to actually pick up the form itself. And you have to put in that hidden input type for it to render the JavaScript part as well to make it know, to make the connection. And then you just give it every type and every name of your form, and inside the form that's rendered in JavaScript. Yes. So if you see here, this input is matched to that input, allowing them to make that connection on the form itself. And then in the input for enter your name, there's the connection made there. So anytime something changes in the JavaScript and you submit the form, it overrides the HTML entity itself and submits through the bot. So the behavior for all the different JavaScript frameworks is exactly the same. It's just you have to give it a hidden form, and you have to then have certain pickups for the connection to be made between them, and then Netlify just takes care of the rest. There's documentation as well of how to connect up like an API that Netlify has to your form, so then you could use Postman or enter it into your own thing to render your data. I haven't looked much into it. It's just I know it's there. And yeah, any questions? Yes. Is this what you're meaning? So, yeah. So I built this in Vite. So you could do this in any tooling system. It's just I did Vite because I think Vite is cool and it's easier to work with. So I'll make it bigger once. Yeah. So it's the same concept that you see in the browser. It has all the tags there, and then you could break it out into components as well. And when it renders the form itself, Netlify won't care how the JavaScript is there as long as the HTML that the bots pick up have the same form information that the HTML has. So the bots know how to make the connection and know how to get the data into the form submissions admin tool. Yes, I've done that on other forms I've made with Netlify forms. It's just this one I didn't. I just wanted to make some simple forms. But yes, you could have interactive forms. You could have, in certain conditions, have this be an input, and other conditions have this be an input. But each input that, even whether it's conditional or not, you have to have it in the HTML form so the bots could pick it up. And when you enter it in and submit the form, whatever is not rendered, whatever is blank, would just show up blank in the database or the form UI. Yeah. So HTML, the hidden thing is what the bots care about. The user never sees the hidden, and then the React component itself is what actually renders the form. Yes. 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 So when you right, this one, for example, is connected to GitHub, and then you push up push, it builds the code. And if I pull up the build on Netlify deployments, right here, it says processing form, and it's the bots pick up that HTML thing on build, and then it knows, oh, I should process this form and build some sort of database. I don't know if it's SQL or NoSQL, but that's on their side, so it doesn't really matter. Well, the basic HTML side, if I'm not using React, it took me 5 minutes. The React one took me a little longer because it's React, but it's like 5, 10, 15 minutes to get a whole form built and deployed so you could start collecting information. Yes. Any other questions? So mostly I use it for like personal forms or family things. Like I run a Plex server, and all my siblings and my parents are shared on my server. So if they have like a request of, oh, I want to get this TV show on here, I have a form built that they could select their name and enter in the name of the show or the movie, and then put in any information as much as I could get, and then I could go find it on Amazon or wherever. So Netlify, the basic idea behind Netlify is to render a website for you. You don't have to host it on a AWS or on your own web server or anything. They take care of it, just like Heroku, or if you ever use GitHub Pages, that's kind of the same idea. Netlify is nice because GitHub Pages has problems with React code and Svelte code and most JavaScript rendered things, whereas Netlify, you give it a build command and it knows how to handle it, whereas GitHub Pages, you have to build it yourself and redirect it to a certain directory, and most of the time they only allow the main directory and docs, and so you have to rename your folder sometimes too. So Netlify manages all that for you, and then each deployment each site has its own deployment and settings, and you could it has a built-in DNS manager as well. So if you have your own DNS, you could host it there and then redirect it to your personal DNS or domain.
Thank you so much, Kyle. That was great. I've heard of Netlify, hadn't seen it before, so thank you for that. I know it's always hard to be put on the spot for coding, and you did well. So please feel free to enjoy and network and everything like that. Also, thank you, Andrew, for